Today on the Esports Meta. It's a great time to be watching League. We have Worlds coming up.
I'm liking the overall design of the game, but I will 100% say right now, it's a little too MOBA-esque.
Teams that you wouldn't expect to even be there had a fighting chance. Hello and welcome to the Esports Meta. I'm Billy Sims, about to bring you all the video game news and esports competitive news the past week. We've got a ton to talk about, a lot to go over, like Overwatch Stage 3, the Championship Series. The finals happened this past weekend, and there was quite a bit of shakeups in the team power rankings, you would say. Some teams you thought would get there didn't, and some that you had no idea about made a move. Also, we're talking about LCS, get a little bit of a score update about what's been going on, and as we prepare ourselves for Worlds, who's getting in, who's not. We'll be going over all of those things in just a second, so if you enjoy, stick around. We're going to be talking about it. We'd love to hear about what your thoughts are, so chime into the comments or hit us up on our social media at the Esports Meta. We're found wherever you enjoy your socials. I had to think about that for a second, but yeah. But you know, we really appreciate it. And if you're not already, subscribe because it really helps us out. It's free for you guys and it really helps out the channel, gets these videos to more people. But to get started, we're going to be talking about Deadlock, and I want to bring in a co-host of mine to help us out in these conversations, and bring him in right now. Nicholas Layton, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Having such a good time sitting here, just waiting.
All day, every day, man. All day, every day. We're having fun.
Always.
Yeah. So with the fun stuff, you know, what have you found to be fun this past week? What games have you been playing? What have you been looking at? Any news stories that have a ridiculous sort of like quote or tagline?
Not really. I've been watching a lot more Deadlock stuff. I've been playing League, watching League, and Magic. Those are like the only three things that I've done for like the last week besides sleep and do my normal job. Yeah.
You know, those are pretty good things to be looking at, especially this time of year. We just got the ban restrict list, so we're, you know, seeing the changes happening there at the local gaming stores over the past weekend. And then LCS, of course, we were talking about like later on this episode, we'll be talking about Worlds. We got about a month away, I think, Nick, right?
Yeah, it should be September that we have the play-in stages start and everything. Oh, well, end of September. And October should be the playing stages. I think like the 17th, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be. We'll find out.
We'll confirm that a little bit later when we're talking about discussing the specificality of it. But like, it's a great time to be watching League. We have Worlds coming up. It's a great time to be talking about and looking at Magic the Gathering. I'm very much enjoying the changes in Overwatch. There's some gripes, of course, but that's actually going to be our first story we're going to be discussing. But I do want to throw in a little bit of a curveball for you. Deadlock was the NDA was lifted last week quite suddenly for a lot of streamers, a lot of people. A lot of people have been able to jump into the game. I myself was able to get a couple hands-on plays on it, and I know, man, like you said, you were watching the streams a little bit. How did you find the game so far? And of course, anybody who's watching, have you seen Deadlock? What's your thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments or just the chat right now. We'll love to hear your thoughts and the overall perception of this game.
So,
but Nick, Nick, go ahead. What are your thoughts after watching?
I'm liking the game in general. I'm switching positions again. That's sick. All right. No, I'm liking the overall design of the game, but I will 100% say right now, it's a little too MOBA-esque for me. And what I can tell, like, it looks like it's from what me and my buddies have noticed, like it's very much all about denying minions, right? And like, I'm a League player, like denying minions isn't like, it's like a Dota thing, right? So like Valve denying minions, like great. But like legitimately, I've watched people play and like the whole game, they're just denying minions. It's not really like playing the game, so it probably has too much value. Like overall, the econ on denying minions in this game seems a little too busted. Like too much as like the main goal.
Hey, Billy here. Wanted to take a quick minute to let you know a few different things. If you enjoyed the video so far, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps us out and it tells the algorithm to share it with more people. You can find the Esports Meta live every week on Twitch and YouTube. It's where we film the podcast or hang out, play games, and chat. If social media is more your vibe, check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, or Twitter if you use Threads. Does anybody use Threads? This is a video game community that's excited to talk about esports, so jump into the conversation. Of course, you can find more videos like this here on YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button right there or there. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to the show. All right, I definitely got that feeling when playing through a little bit. It's very Dota. It's very MOBA. It is like the most MOBA I've seen and played in a very long time. Granted, I don't play League. I don't play Dota itself. But everyone was coming in saying that this is going to be the Overwatch killer because I'm from more of a community of Overwatch. I'm more from like a fighting game aspect or like a WoW race to world first kind of aspect. But those communities have been speaking about this game because it's getting so much buzz. And the thing that they keep referencing is that it's Overwatch. And I just don't see the Overwatch comparison other than here's a champion with abilities. But like League has that. Dota has that. Like Smite has that, Paladins has that, like more in a 1-to-1 ratio with those two games. So like I still don't see the comparison, especially getting some hands-on, how it was going to be the Overwatch killer, because kind of like what you said, the team fights, which is like a big staple of like an Overwatch shooter, it's anchored around that. It's anchored around team fights, whereas with Deadlock, the team fights are important, but it doesn't feel as important as perhaps the lane control and like econ of it, which, you know, leveling up, itemization, etc. There's a lot of cool depth with it, but like that definitely was something that shook me a little bit. It threw me off because I was expecting one thing the way everyone's been talking about it, and I was getting another thing. Not to yuck somebody else's yum on this. I don't think it's entirely for me, but in that same way, it was something completely different than I expected. And I have to admit, I like MOBAs in a simpler form. I'm a fan of Heroes of the Storm. I'm a fan of Pokemon Unite, not monetization parts. There's some other Xbox MOBAs. I think Psycho Astronauts. It wasn't Psychonauts, but it was something else. But anyway, like it was like a 2D laner vertically. And I like those games. They were simpler MOBAs, but you know, when I go into League or Dota, the depth of it becomes very overwhelming and feels very heavy-handed, and this definitely felt to that degree of things. Have you had any sort of thoughts or experience with that yet, or any sort of reaction to like maybe my hands-on for it?
I mean, like, so I don't necessarily think like Dota itself is like too complicated, but like this game is very much like a MOBA more than it is Shadowrun, right? Like any clown who's calling it Overwatch, and I'll call you clowns if you're saying that this is like an Overwatch killer. Like you're a clown. Like you're an absolute clown. Like you're a clown and it's fine, but you're a clown and you have no. It's like a writer who says, "Oh man, we got the new, you know, what is this? Dark Souls over here. This game is so Dark Souls like." You sound like a clown. It's not. It does not. It's nothing like Overwatch for the most part, right? It's more like a traditional MOBA than anything else, right? But the MOBA format is like solved, right? Like this is going to be just like all the other MOBAs, just it's going to be like the shooter form of it, okay? Which like right now might be because it's new, it's going to mean in order to get people like a little bit hooked, it's going to be more about your individual strength rather than like your team strength. And what you could do is like an individual player. That's how we have like, you know, God Killer Faker over here who would like 1v5 a whole entire team in like League of Legends, right? And like back in the day on like Zed and stuff like that, right? But like MOBAs itself, especially in like pro play, are kind of like, they're not 100% solved, but it's way more solved than you think it is. And this does not feel like Overwatch. It feels like basically like a solved MOBA, but they're just putting guns in.
You know, in that same way, when you get to like a high level professional Overwatch League, even in Overwatch 1 especially, it was a solved game in that way too, where they had set plays. Literally, a lot of the maps were choreographed by teams, and the teams that could choreograph it better, you know, we're going to come out with this comp, we're going to have this look, we're going to position here, you have to stand here because I'm going to do this, was very much the strategy and coaching style in Overwatch. It still kind of is, but it's definitely less than Overwatch 1. So like you have that, and like I can understand that in the high level of play, but you know, when you get kind of more down to the nitty gritty, I think you lose that for Overwatch. In that bronze level, it's all chaos. In gold, it's all chaos. And I'm sure that's also the case in like League and et cetera, when you get to really low levels, but still there's all these builds, and we talk about this for WoW. The game is solved. Like, this is the talent build you have to run to play this class at the most optimal aspect. And we're kind of seeing that recede a little bit with something like WoW, where it's like the difference is really negligible unless you're like parsing 100%, 99%ers, racing the world first. And those guys are going to do that regardless of what class they kind of pick, because, you know, but in a league, you kind of have that heavy handedness still. Like, you gotta, not that you have to play this character, but there's a big thing with the build. You have to build it this way. There's a lot of discourse that way. Overall, too, I want to kind of add, you know, a lot of people saying this was going to take a lot of audience from Overwatch, and maybe just because people are looking to get a new game, play a new shooter. This is a shooter technically, but it doesn't feel like a shooter. It feels like a, you know, so I feel like it's going to take more from like a, you know, the other games, the other MOBAs, the League, the not the Valves, the Dotas, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a market share it gets.
I actually think I figured it out, that it has to be my camera. It has to be. It can't be a connection. It has to be Skype or my camera. But anyway, what we were saying.
The last point I was making is I feel like, it feels heavy-handed sometimes, but with Overwatch, I think this is going to be not an Overwatch killer. I'm sure it's going to take some people from Overwatch, but I don't think it offers anything the same that Overwatch does. I think it's going to probably, if it takes an audience, it's going to take more from League or Dota.
I'll be completely honest with you. I think that this is going to be like a gateway drug. I think this is Valve's like actual like gateway drug. I don't think that this game will really be like all that successful. Like, put it to you this way, like if the only thing that changed your mind on a MOBA was having your character in 3D and having it be a third-person shooter, like, well, fuck me, there should be more Smite players. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it is like really what it is. I thought it would be like more of a shooter, but it's more of a MOBA. And like, really, I don't see Overwatch players, which is not, there is a Venn diagram that speaks to, we do have a section of players who play MOBAs and play Overwatch and play World of Warcraft, but no, like, you're not going to steal the Overwatch people are not going to go to this game. It doesn't feel like Overwatch. It's 30 minutes longer than an Overwatch game. Like, it's kind of silly to the point to think, like, this is what I was saying before, just clowns. It's not the same game. Hype
beast trying to snack on the next hype moment. They're buying a ticket to the hype train as
and this is like no disrespect, but if everybody's going to say that, like, you know, it's like Overwatch, then I'll use like the most classic rap lyrics of, you know, this is chess, not checkers. Like, it's not the same game, bro. It's not even close to the same game. Like, it doesn't make any sense to really like equate these two. But if you were to say, like, you know, it's a Venn diagram of Dota 2 and Smite, like, sure. Like, that's a perfect example of it. Like, the creep denial, the characters themselves, like.
Yeah. You keep, you know, mentioning the Venn diagram. I think that's like a brilliant way of looking at it too when it comes to the audience shares, etc. We've been so conditioned and trained, especially with like the Pepsi versus Coke, you know, you have to like one or the other sort of aspect of things, especially when it comes now to social media. Eyeballs matter, you know, you gotta be, you know, in front of people, and you got to stay at the top. And like, there's a degree where that's super important, but we are seeing a shift in video games a bit more where it's like a lot more casual friendly, a lot more, if you want the biggest number of people, you have to like acknowledge that people are going to jump on, jump off. You're going to have the diehards who stay on. You know, how many League players have just stayed on in the game for years and years and years? And like, they're diehards. They're not going to go anywhere. Same with Overwatch. The people that are playing it right now mostly are going to be the diehards. The ones that come in for the new battle pass, a new season, are gone in a week. So like there is a style of playing video games where it's just like hop on, hop off. So like having that sort of mentality of all or nothing. This is the new game. You're going to play it all the time. And, you know, it's only going to hit like a small percentage of people, whereas the big percentage of people are going to try it, play it for a little bit, and then move on. And like, I think that Venn diagram might encompass that a lot more than the hype beast going, this is the new it game. You got to play it. It's going to be played by everybody absolutely 100% of the time.
I mean, here's what we can count on for this game. No, here's what we can count on, right? Valve is one of the few companies that isn't really trying to take it a pound town. Like on a regular basis, there's some stuff that they do.
Fair.
But on a regular basis, like especially when it comes to like their MOBA community, that community is very vocal. They give a lot of money for the people who play in that community. There is like, you know, they fundraise a lot of the prize support, but you know, it's a huge prize support. They do give a lot to it. So like, this is what you can expect from the person who's running the game, which is to have, you know, scheduled updates. They're going to keep it alive, even if like, you know, it's only for, you know, a certain number of people, because that community itself would like, they do probably expect that community to keep itself like sustained for the most part.
Right. And like, I wanted to jump in and say Valve also got rid of battle passes in Dota. They invented battle passes and now they're sort of testing out the world without it. So like the entire video game ecosystem now revolves around battle passes, but you have Valve leading the charge and saying, yeah, we don't need this. It kind of feels bad. And it doesn't totally make sense for our model, our monetary model, let alone our player base. So let's just do away with it. And they're going to shift into something else. And they're still a thriving company. So like, yeah, I wanted to jump in on that just to kind of add that point. So if you wanted to continue your thought, otherwise I was just going to talk about how like Deadlock is going to be a competitive game. Absolutely. Because Valve is Valve. They're going to make it a competitive game. They're going to give it prize support. They're going to do the things with it. They're going to have an audience base, and then they're going to support it as a game that's fun to play if you want to play it. And it's not going to be like that. You have to play it kind of stuff. But, you know, word of mouth and sentiment is more powerful than that marketing PR blitz for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Valve, better Blizzard, like, it seems like they're just gonna like, if Deadlock succeeds, they're just gonna have like, all right, guys, we're making JRPGs. Let's go. like it doesn't even matter. Like, oh yeah, dude, we got tactical RPGs there too. Like they have a MOBA. All right, granted, you know, they're gonna do another MOBA, but they also have, you know, their auto chess battler, which is still pretty good, right? And they have Counter-Strike for the most part. Like it's not really like a Valve thing, but like
rumor is Portal 3 is getting made. I'm excited about that one. But Valve is going to do Valve things. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, who knows? But, you know, if you think that the, you know, a MOBA style game is going to pull Overwatch people away from Overwatch, it's that's a clown fiesta type move. It's just, it doesn't make any damn sense, bro. It makes no sense.
It's definitely going to pique interest and people are going to play it, but they'll probably play both. They'll probably like, you know, tap in a little bit for this and tap out and then tap in on the other thing. But anyway, speaking of Overwatch, what's that, bud?
No, I was going to say like 80% of Overwatch players are going to play and go like, I'm not farming, bro. This is ass.
I didn't deny their con. Yeah. No, it's fair. And it's a much different skill set. It's not focused on the team shooter aspect that Overwatch is, the strategy of positioning. This one has a little bit of the positioning, but it's more about denying positioning, you're saying. So different skill sets, different sort of styles. And like, we'll see how this develops. Let us know what your thoughts are about Deadlock. Have you gotten to play it? Have you seen it so far? Message us in the comments here. Let us know live. We can respond, react to it, get you involved in the show. Otherwise, hit us up on our social medias at the Esports Meta on all your favorite platforms. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know your thoughts. We are gamers just like you guys, and we want to see what you guys think. But let's move into our first big topic. This past weekend, Overwatch Championship Series Stage 3 Finals. That's a mouthful. They occurred this past weekend, and it was quite the event. A 4-day event happening. This one, was it LAN? I can't remember if it's LAN or not. Either way, This was a big deal because we saw a lot of shakeups in the North America and EMEA regions. The teams you'd think would win didn't quite make it. Teams that you wouldn't expect to even be there had a fighting chance. It's no longer a single show horse running the party. It is literally a competitive battle. We're seeing maps get taken, and that gap is definitely slimming out. So let's move us into the teams that competed this past weekend and run down what we saw. So for the North America region, we'll go over first here. We had Toronto Defiant, Energy Shock, which I believe was students of the game that were converted back on DreamHack. They got bought out by Energy and Shock. I rebranded. Citrus Nightmare, NTMR, Timeless, Shikigami, TSM, Avidity, Timeless Ethereal, the Sun Devils, Fluffy Dreamland, Fries in the Bag. Love that name. Best part about going for a food run, the fries in the bag. Team Z, Vice, Tanuki Esports, and Absolution were the teams competing here. A lot of new names because we're seeing a lot of different shakeups with rosters. Nick, remember earlier this season we were talking about how points for the World Championship are tied to the players and not the organization?
Yeah.
Well, straightforward, it's come back and it became a big part of the game here. We have teams that are proudly in the top with the same roster. Toronto Defiant, one of the most flexible team rosters in North America. No, not one of the most flexible team roster in North America. They'll field 5 people and they're able to run so many different comps. They don't have an identity comp this per se. They are stronger on some than others, but they're able to flex around, and that's been their strength. That's what got them second place at the EWC. So these guys are staying there. Same with an Energy Shock. You're seeing consistent names, but then you see like a Team Nightmare, which are picking up players from other teams, ones that like have, certain points already associated with them, like Infected here. You've got other teams just being made randomly, like Fries in the Bag I think is a Swiss qualifier, but like they're just amalgamating from different points. Same with like Timeless Ethereal. Like you're seeing these shifts of rosters from these points. TSM, we've seen a couple different changes for it, but like they've really stayed the same, and like they've just fallen off. So like you've got this shakeup for these team rosters because of the point values being associated with the player and not the organization, which has been an interesting part of this tournament so far. And like it's really going to define it's really going to define which teams are going to get to DreamHack. If you're not the Toronto Defiant, it might be the only way you're going to make it. And like, it's kind of interesting to see how like Energy Shock is running 2, 4, 6, and 8 person team, while Toronto Defiant's only running a 5. They're like almost hoarding points at that point.
That's exactly what I was just thinking, dude. Like they're just sitting there. Like, see, these guys might be Defiant players, future Defiant players, because right here, absolutely farming right now. So, but yeah, I mean, like I was thinking about it while you were saying all this stuff, right? Like I'm wondering how much control the players have when they leave the team. So like, let's say Toronto Defiant wanted to, thanks for adjusting the screen as if it adjusted my camera. So like if the Toronto Defiant, can't talk, wanted to sell one of their players who has like a good amount of teams, one, how much profit did they make on this? Like, bro, we're not selling you this guy unless you give us an extra 100,000 in the pocket in order to get these, like, this
especially
player.
late in the season.
And it has nothing to do with this like, I yeah, a little kid in the background. So I just started to think like, how late in the season? At what point in the season do these players become products?
Is
what I was thinking.
My daughter's hyped about this because like as we get later and later in the season, we just wrapped stage 3. We've got stage 4 happening, and then we've got Worlds at Stockholm DreamHack. You're right. What point do they become products? What time do they start transferring? I don't think you're going to see the Toronto Defiant selling one of their players. These guys are in it. They've got a good deal, etc. But like on the back end, do you see an Energy Shock, trading off PGE, who just had an amazing performance this past weekend? The dude died like 30 times in one match. And then like, you know, if you ain't dying, you're trying, he tweeted out. But then the next day he comes back and he's just putting on a hit scan show for the rest of it. And like, you know, some days you have, it's just like that. It be like that. You just get dove over and over again, especially in this meta. But you know, he might be a valuable asset to then leverage to another team for that money for the organization. Or he could be a valuable asset to keep and hold on to so that you're weakening the competition, right? Like there's so many aspects of this that make it kind of interesting of the strategy organizations can start to do and how much the players can be involved with, where it's like, I'm demanding a better pay raise, or, you know, I have a better condition, or I want to be on a team with the points. I think on Nightmare, it was something that Infected did. I think Infected lost on a different team. I think he was on Timeless. I don't recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but then he ended up changing to a different team kind of thing. You know, like, correct me if it's not Infected, please let me know, but I do remember a player doing that recently. And like these roster changes, I'm not super in depth on. The back end deals, I'm not super in depth on, but this aspect of it has come back to be quite interesting as a strategy. And maybe like, hey, Team Falcons EWC club champion point, kind of like, we're going to bar out everybody else by just fielding a team for every game. We're going to field multiple teams for the fighting games kind of thing. Like this might be strategies like that, some cartel tactics.
Honest to God, I would keep anybody with that mental. Like, to be fair, like I would keep him, because if you put him onto like a midway, if you sold him to like a midway to bottom tier team, he might rise those motherfuckers up, man. Like they might have the best mental in the game and then literally come back and just start like, he's like, don't worry about it, guys. So what? We were sitting in gray screen all day yesterday. Like today we're playing in full color vision. Don't even worry about it. Like, so.
No, you're right. You're right. And it makes for an interesting aspect of this. It's a new depth that we haven't really seen. Like we didn't really see trades and whatnot in Overwatch League. We saw some roster stuff happen between seasons. But like, especially as time went on, it kind of got weaker and weaker. It wasn't as exciting, wasn't really palpable. And this almost feels like more substantial, even in the stuff that you're not doing, because you can withhold talent from your other competitors, basically. But, you know, speaking of the competitors, let's get into how the competition actually played out, who won, and what the prizes were, you know. I'm going to start by congratulating Toronto Defiant, you know, as a number one seed, but taking the number one place, walking away with $30,000 and 500 circuit points, which they kind of don't need, but hey, they take them, then that means other people don't get them. Energy Shock with our second place, which is a bit surprising. You know, we'll go into that a little bit more. And Nightmare fighting for third place. And it was really close between these three teams. Toronto Defiant bled. They saw red in their logo again, and they bled a little bit, but they were able to turn on the Jets and overcome Energy Shock and Nightmare. Those teams, maybe it was the patch, they didn't have as good of an understanding with it, but you know, respectively, Energy Shock walked away 15 grand as well as 400 circuit points. Nightmare and NTMR $10,000 and 300 circuit points specifically. Just to kind of look at the format really quickly as I scroll up here. It's the same as the other stages have been, and it's going to be the same as what stage 4 is going to be. The Swiss round happened on, I think, the past month. You had 9 Swiss rounds. All matches were first to 2, best of 3, and the top 24 teams moved on into the cut. Of that cut, all matches again were best of 3, first to 2. You had 2 Swiss rounds, and the top 12 teams advanced. So you cut it in half at that point. Group stages is where things got really exciting, where you actually started seeing the cream of the crop rise. The teams you knew, the teams you didn't know started making names for themselves. And there was 4 groups. They played each other in that, and basically the top 2 teams from each group moved on from that. So there, of course, we'll go over the groups in a second. But you know, some groups were like more competitive than others. Some groups were just the group of death. You're like, good luck getting out of that kind of moment and thing. You know, and then the main event was just a double elimination bracket that we normally see. All matches were best of 3. The grand finals was actually a best of 7. Sorry, best of 5 and then a best of 7. Let me say that again. All the matches were best of 5, first to 3, and then the grand finals was best of 7, first to 4. Nick, any sort of initial commentary about the prize pool, the prize winnings, the teams you saw here as I scroll us into the groups and whatnot? You know, are you surprised at first, second, third place here?
I'm surprised at that whole prize pool. That's all I got to say. I don't even want to talk. I don't want to talk. What do you mean?
Top or bottom? You know, is it too high, too low?
It is way too low. This is like sorry, how significant is this again? Because my understanding is like this is stage 3. No, this is not stage 3, right?
It's stage 3 or 4, yeah.
It's pretty weak. It's pretty weak prize pool for like the end. But what are you gonna do?
I think we're a little biased too, coming out of EWC and seeing the prize pools for that across the board on all the different games. And like we even saw, like, you know, complained about how Pokemon World Championships, how the prize support there felt really weak. You know, and that only happens, the Worlds only happens once, and that was like the big marquee event they do annually, and it felt kind of low end. At least we could say here, you know, if you win first place 4 times, you're walking away with 120 grand. Like Toronto Fiends are won first place in the 3 stages.
For a year, though.
You're right. 120 grand for a year.
For a year. For a year, bro. Like one of the, not even executives, but like, I bet you like the laundry person on their team, like makes like 70 G's. So like, how much are the players getting? Because these are how many, like TSM? Like these are full teams. Like how much money is TSM? TSM's already been like struggling through like many different aspects on like money and everything like that. Revenue has been like a huge thing for TSM. So like, let's say they won the $120,000 for a year. How much effort are they going to put into scouting new players, paying new players? How much money are they going to pay them just for that? Just for a measly, maybe like, and let's say there's 4 good teams that all share the top spot. Like they all got 30,000 for a year worth of play. Bro, what is this, man?
It's definitely a bit weaker on that aspect, and it's definitely a weak prize support from Blizzard. This is an inaugural thing. OWCS is the new stage of things. We saw how DreamHack, they try to crowdsource a 25% split for a Hanzo skin. You know, the prize, you pay $100 for it, only 25 goes to the teams, to the prize pool. That felt bad. I know the skin wasn't $100, but just as a quick math, easy example. So like, it could be that malfeasance, a little bit of like, you know, we're trying to make a profit from our video game rather than use this as marketing. But in the same regards, like, yeah, you're right. They're not supporting this as a marketing scheme either.
Just like how much, like overall, like didn't like Overwatch 2 earn $100 million in the first 3 months when it was released? When they re-released the first game and cut a player out of the matchmaking? Like we went out, like they've made way too much money. Like, all right, so I don't want to lose my shit when I say this, but right, like
start cooking. Let's see what you got.
No, just stop playing the shitty game, dude. Like I say, like don't play the game if they're not going to pay you to do it. Like this company is making way too much money, and I defend Blizzard enough that I can slam them enough, right? Like their games are good. It's a solid game, right? But screw these people. Bobby Kotick's not even in the company anymore, and you're still getting left out of the piece of pie that you deserve. Like that's insane. And I feel the same way about League too, but I don't give them any of my money.
Well, in that sort of way, do you think this is a problem across esports in general? Do you think this is a situation where like the grifter money has left the people who are trying to make it into franchise leagues, the people who are just trying to like tap in and like ride the wave of like, yeah, you know, to the moon kind of shit? Like, do you think that's...
It's not to the moon, it's to the whales. It's to the whales. Every single one of these games dies, but stays alive because of the whales who spend money on the crap that they keep producing, right? Like, they're not making $100 million in the first 3 months because, you know, a good product that they put out. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that they put out besides the game. They didn't put out an amazing skin that was worth $100 million in the first 3 months. They're making so much money off of you guys. And this is like, this is for Overwatch. It's not really for World of Warcraft. Those guys are paying $15 a month since 2003. Like, they're getting taken care of. They could pay more money and get more out of it, but they get what they pay for $15 a month. Hasn't changed for 20 years now, right? And every single couple months, it's, you know, a crappy tournament with a poor prize pool, and they're saying like it wasn't sustainable. How wasn't this game sustainable?
Shareholders. That's why. But that's why I'm also asking too, like, do you feel like the whales in the game are really watching esports? Do you think those are the players? I saw something, I think CarQ did a video with one of his FAQ hot takes thing, and one of the hot takes that was submitted was that getting skins is not optional. You have to get the skin if you play a game. And like, we've talked about this before with Apex. We've talked about this before with Overwatch and these games, even like the faker $900 bundle or $500 bundle. You don't have to buy those things. You shouldn't buy those things if you don't want to. But there's some people that feel obligated on top of the FOMO. And like, these companies will profiteer from that stuff, of course. And then they don't really feed it back. But do you think the person who's buying that $500 faker bundle gives a shit about LCS or LCK? Maybe, because it's related to faker. But then do you think Overwatch, the person who's buying all the Transformer skins or the Seraphim package that's just been put out, skins are bomb. They're a lot of fun. But like, do you think that person who's buying that, like hands down, quick, immediately, really gives a shit about OWCS or what Toronto Defiance doing, or if Crazy Raccoon is crazy? Like, a genuine question. Because I would say no. Those whales might float the game, but then how does that impact the esport aspect of it? And it just kind of feels like they're doing it because they're obligated to give it perception. The whales
support the investors into the company. They don't support anything about your game at all. When you buy a skin, it does not support your game. That is end all be all, a period, an exclamation point, a nuclear explosion going off, doesn't matter. There's not one skin in the entirety of any game that is made for your community to be inflated instead of just taking something away from you guys, which is your money. And not even for like half the time, like good products. Like a lot of animations don't change in Overwatch. Like, it doesn't change regardless. It's just it's a color skin. Like it's literally just going into MS Paint functionally. Like, Blizzard's not a very good company overall. Like, they have good products, right? But like, they're not a good company. So like, I understand you want to support it, right? But like, even the last time that we tried to support this as like a community, like Blizzard still took 75% of it and gave out 25% of like what we made off of like the community, right? Like, so
right.
Like you can't buy skins until you hold this company to a higher standard. But if you don't care about the competitiveness or the game itself, if you just like the game and you like pretty things, then you're going to spend money regardless anyway. And then they're not our target audience. They don't know what I'm saying right now. Screw them. Right. Yeah. But like, it's very frustrating to see that there's there's so many active players who play Overwatch. There's so many people who really enjoy playing Overwatch, and so many diverse people who do play Overwatch. I meet more people who are different from me who play Overwatch than I do people who play League of Legends, or like Magic the Gathering is also the same with like Overwatch. I meet way more unique people in those games than I do elsewhere. So like, I'd like these games to survive. I want their communities to thrive, but their communities can't thrive if, you know, Blizzard has their boot on your neck. Like, it doesn't, like, they have too many players, man. It's like they have too many players.
To convert that into like in the organization part here with esports, like we're talking about how, if I'm an organization, I'm Toronto Defiant, and we are guaranteed to win all 4 of the stage first places, which this one got pretty close. They got a little dicey. We'll go over that in a second. But, you know, I'm going to win $120,000. Does that $120,000 cover the 5 contracts of the roster? And they're a slim roster. They only field 5 people, which I think is the minimal, and a coach, right? And maybe some coaching staff they're an organization that sells merch. They're a legacy organization from the Overwatch League. So like they have a little bit of a pre-existing infrastructure and system, you know, but like you're saying, all these other sort of groups that are coming up, will they be able to sustain? And that's sort of my question. And like, will the whales support the esports indirectly? They support the stockholders, and then supporting the stockholders supports the Blizzard as a business, where it's like, yes, we'll sign off on this check to make this game. But then, you know, as we saw with a lot of Bobby Kotick decisions, allegedly, you know, implications of, you know, they were pushed to do one thing or another. StarCraft 2 made less money than a single horsey mount in World of Warcraft. And like when that kind of stuff funds and pushes, that then influenced, hey, we're not going to make StarCraft 3. We're not going to make a StarCraft MMO. We're not going to make a StarCraft first person shooter, whatever the projects they were doing around the new StarCraft project, which StarCraft is a very successful game. You know, that's all sort of like leading from the shareholders, but then how does that impact esports and these organizations? Because we're seeing it's literally like maybe dumbing down the prize pool, slimming it down a bit, making it a little tougher and tighter for these players to compete with a living wage, these organizations to be incentivized to actually want to play. And we are coming off a little bit of a bias from EWC, where the prize pools were very well funded by some very interesting things. But like, you know, money's money, take their money, shut up, don't talk about it, move on kind of thing. As an individual point. But, you know, how does that happen with Blizzard? Because it doesn't. How does it happen with a Pokemon? Because it doesn't. How does it happen with League? Maybe Valve is like the closest thing to being good guy developer when it comes to competition and genuinely supporting it. But then you total opposite. You have like a Nintendo who's like, yeah, you're not allowed to even do these things on your own because we want to make sure you're not doing anything naughty kind of stuff. And like, okay, no prize pool over $5,000 is allowed, unless, you know, we say you can do it, and we're going to be really tight-lipped on who can do it and who cannot. Ultimately, a lot of context for this question of how do the whales then impact the esports side of it? How do they impact the Toronto Defiant? How do they impact TSMs or the fries in the bag team, right?
I think you should think about the company and the whales being more in cahoots than anything else in your game. Like, if there's... Let's just think about it for a second, right? Like, let's just think about it. Like, full numbers real quick.
Nick, I'm just trying to ask about how do we centralize this on esports though? Because like that's all going to happen, and it's going to happen regardless if esports is happening or not. So like, is esports sort of then a facade of that? Like, especially with an Overwatch and a Blizzard esports, because we can see how it works with Dota and Valve. But like with Blizzard kind of doing this, so are they doing it just to kind of be like, yeah, we're a competitive game, guys, look at what we're selling? Or are they doing it because they actually believe like, hey, this could pull us in some money. They can get new audience members as a marketing thing. This could get us new people in the game, etc.
I don't think Blizzard does anything unless they think they're going to get an exorbitant amount of money from it. Okay. Yeah. Even like right now, while they're doing it, I think that they know on the back channels how much money that they're going to make by supporting this piss poor tournament prize pools, just in general, and stuff like this. Like, I think they know exactly how much money they're making, who they're getting it from, whether it be sponsors or, you know, what have you. And like the easiest way to support esports in general, you got like, they almost have 7 million active daily users. Okay. Like 7 million. Like on average is like 6.5 almost, right?
It's been going up too. It's been going up on Steam charts.
Yeah.
And it's been going up on Xbox Live and stuff. Yeah.
Let's take 25% of the player base, right? If the 25% of the player base spent what, $2, $5 on a skin, right? Just for like esports, right? Just for that. Like, how much money is that, right? A lot. How much money? In fact, it's over $3 million. Just from you guys spending $2, 25% of your player base. Like, again, like I think the same thing for League. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I will say the same thing about Riot. Like, but again, I don't give them my money. So like, it's not really like, I don't really feel like I'm being personally violated from this. Like, I watch esports, and if it doesn't succeed because they don't want to support it, well, they failed. That's basically how I see it, because I don't buy skins or anything like that.
when you crunch the numbers like that, it does make it a little bit more specified. Who knows what it is actually on the back end, but we know we're not paying $1 or $2 for skins. We haven't really seen any skins come out for a competitive. That kind of the Hanzo one seemed to be like a layover from Overwatch League. I think it was like $25, maybe 30.
Jesus, really?
Hanzo, they have skins in the game, and the battle passes generally go from at least $20. So at $25, if 1/4 of all the active daily users bought that thing, which is probably a lot. That's probably like a good amount. Probably
right?
an overestimation, but yeah.
Probably an overestimation, but we can go back. We can go from like spending that $25, bro. That's $40 million. That's almost $41 million. Like these for the year, first place gets $120,000. Like this tournament for a year is probably $1 million. Like,
yeah. Do me a favor, real quick. Run that number for 1% of the population. If 1% of the Overwatch population bought a skin.
All right, let's see.
$25 to kind of just give a little bit more context to this, because we're going to go into like, I think it's relevant to go into
$20.
Let's do $20.
Sure, $13 million.
$13 million if 1% of the Overwatch player base
of the active daily users. Like, and again, this is what I mean. Like, they make that trash Yasuo skin, right? They can even make emotes and stickers and sell them to you for $1, but they don't care because other people are paying more on other games, and they'd rather think about other people's pockets instead of their community or their own pockets, for that matter. They see other people making more money on all the skins or something like that, and they got to do it, right? See how much money EA's making off Fortnite skins and Fortnite this and, you know, stuff like that. It's like they're obviously out to get your money. Blizzard is just Disney in the video gaming world for the most part. Like, I don't know. I get frustrated when it's like this stuff. Like when I see these prize pools that are so low and talking about like there's no money for these teams and organizations to make money in esports, it's because these companies are like they have no idea how to grow their own money. It's like besides killing their companies. And I see the same thing with Magic. Like I see it with all these companies.
It's definitely short-term gains over long-term progression. And like, let's go back into like the tournament page here real quick to kind of like do some quick numbers. This was stage 3. There was $75,000 prize pool for this stage. Let's just say it's the same for the 4 stages. 75 times 4, I think is $300,000 if my math is correctly. So basically for just the stage portion of this, they're giving away $300,000. So the tournaments cost $300K. Then we have DreamHack Dallas and DreamHack Stockholm. So 2 more tournaments, which I believe we need to check the prize pool. So you're talking $300K. That's EMEA. Whereas I'm going to need to double check on that. But like you're talking like $300,000. And then of course, production for the year, you're paying contracts for talent. You're paying for just the streaming producers and like the tech guys running the stuff. So I'm sure that's going to be a decent cost because salary is always a big cost. But regardless, like you're saying, like if we aim this at $1 million, $1 million is like nothing as a marketing budget when it comes to certain companies and stuff. And the whole question probably ends up being is how much value is this marketing campaign of esports than providing a Blizzard backwards. And like, this is the same struggle that maybe traditional sports have. I just saw recently that the Baltimore Ravens NFL football team rented out their stadium without any game, any show, anything happening. They basically made like, I think it was $400,000 for renting out their suites to people who are doing fantasy football drafts. They're having fantasy football draft parties at the stadium in the box suites. They provided food. They provided a board with stickers so you can like with the player names, and they rented them out for like $60 a person, something like that, with 10 people, I think, or like $900 total per room. And like they made a $400,000. So like they get clever. They find these ways and stuff. And that's something traditional sports will do. It's a way that esports has not traditionally done. But then you see how these companies almost chokehold them into not being able to do that. even the companies just sort of taking advantage of that. Kind of interesting thought, kind of interesting point here. And like, we're talking about $300,000 for these 4 stages. I'm trying to really quickly, Nick, if you want to like chime in and add something, I'm going to try to find the prize pool of DreamHacks, what they're paying out for both of them, so that, we can then add up the numbers total.
Here's the thought that I'm having, like, while we're just like sitting here and talking about this, right? Is like, I know people don't want to pay, right? Here's an idea. Riot, Blizzard, you both can have this. It's free. I swear to God, it's free, right? Here's what you do, right? You pay your one person who's making skins, right? Like one person out of the 5, or maybe you already have these skins for whatever champions, because you guys are dog shit like that. Like, you might even have some in the pocket from 3 years ago that you want to release now, right? Set up $20 to watch esports, and you get 5 skins. Exclusive skins that you purchase just for watch esports, right? Don't release your viewership numbers on any platform, okay? Specifically host it, and don't share any of that. And then guess what you do? You sell the fact that you had all these people buy the rights to watch esports, and then you sell the marketers onto selling advertisement onto your thing right there, and just do it that way. Like, I would pay $20 to get a couple skins, and then I'd be able to watch esports. Like, I wouldn't pay now if you didn't give me anything extra. And then in 4 years, you could do a Netflix to us, punch us in the gut, and take away the skins. Like, I don't get it, dude. Like, stop being stupid and help me spend my money. Like, and like, help me, like, help everybody do the thing. Like, this is like, dude, I've been in sales for so long. Like, how do I get someone to spend more money? I give them what they want. Like, that's pretty much what it is. Like, if I had, like, I just give them what you want at the most part, like, for the most part, within my control. And then that's it. Like, I don't know, man. It's so weird to say that these guys, like, you can't be successful. League has a problem with viewership. They have a problem with viewership. Like, Overwatch, just to put it this way, like, I think for stage 3, they saw like 133,000 people, just so you know, right? And like, I always do, like, think about it in math for the most part, right? If every one of those people spent $20 and got a bunch of skins, right? Like, just think about that. $20, $2.5 million, $20 for it, just to watch the esport.
Yeah. I just want to jump in. It's sort of in fairness, though. We know, like, in sales, not everybody's going to buy the thing, right? That's why they retail price of something, I think, is like 4 times what it costs for them to buy it, like a store to buy it, because you want one extra to double, any sort of shrinkage. You want one more on top of that to cover another one just in case, like, and then like a 4th one just to have room, basically. Like, there's like strategy in the pricing market when it comes to stuff like that. So like, we know not everybody's going to buy everything based on the pricing models of things. So here, if you take that and say 25% of the viewership, like, you're still talking about $250,000. Oh, sorry. What did I say? The $75,000. You're doing a $75,000 market budget for $100,000 profit, potentially, for sales. And like, that's the thing. You got to sell them. You got to make it valuable. Give somebody something they want. Like you said, I think is the most valuable thing in that. And like, that's like, we're harping on the prize pool here for this past event because it doesn't seem like it is giving people what they want. The event was fun, good, but like, will we have good events if they're not funded? If prizes aren't given? Like, going back to this real quick. Yeah, you won $30,000, but you're Toronto Defiant, and like, you've got 5 ex-Overwatch League players, a couple grand final Overwatch League champions, literally the reigning champions and forever champions, right? Then you've got other players and teams who are Overwatch League caliber, who've been in it and not in it, Overwatch caliber and been in it, not in it, timeless. They've got some contender players that are just the next up, right? The up and coming. Why should they choose to spend their time and play this and get good competition here if they're not going to get money when, you're walking uphill against the Toronto Defiant. Okay, so like I did end up finding numbers. So we did see, okay, there's 4 stages, $75,000 total prize pool for each. There's being $300,000. Going to Overwatch DreamHack Dallas, the total prize pool was $250,000. So that right there, that's $550,000, $500,000 for that. You throw in DreamHack Stockholm, let's say it's the same, which I think it might be different. I have to dig in, but like let's just assume it's the same. At that point, you're talking about $800,000, right? You're still under that 1 million, and then you have production costs. Let's say, you know, at minimum it's $200,000, probably more like 400 or 500. So you're talking 1.3 million for a marketing budget for the year for a company like this doing this aspect of it. Like, it seems wild. It seems, you know, they could do more, and that they should be also doing more in the broadcast. It's not the talent's fault. It's not the production. It's the company. They're not selling these things anymore. They're not selling experience. They're not selling values. They're not selling skins. I watch this and I love the games. I have a lot of fun, but like, I don't have this urge like, oh man, I need to go buy that skin because I want to support this team. I want to support this company because wow, this is a lot of value. I'll go to Thor's stream and Pirate Software stream and go, wow, what he's doing with the ads, he's regifting it to subs for his community. I want to give this guy some money because there's value in that, right? Like, it's a good guy sort of mentality. And yeah, you know, we're tangenting hard and like on this, but like, I think it's an emphasis that might impact the overall sustainability of Overwatch esports or esports in general.
I think about this all the time, right? It's like these people make piss poor amounts of money, right? Like, you're trying to turn them into like an office worker from the 90s and the early 2000s with how much money that they make, right? Well, every single kid doesn't give a shit about esports half the time anymore. And we're like, esports people are getting smaller and smaller because streamers make more and more money streaming the game of Overwatch, streaming this, streaming that, right? So like, if that's where if you're not gonna put the prize support in, like, who the hell is going to be like, you know what? That's a real prestigious thing, being the best Overwatch player in the world. Thank God I made $10,000. Like, it's clown nonsense. They make so much money, and no kid wants to go. Like, they'd rather be Kai than be an Overwatch player because look how much money Kai makes. Kai can literally get 4 million people to show up in Times Square. Like, what Overwatch person can do that? Like, XQC maybe could have had a monkey rant like 3 years ago and got people to move, but like. And I say monkey because he slams his desk, right? Like,
would you even call XQC an Overwatch streamer anymore, right? A lot of these streamers are moving away from Overwatch on top of that. So it's not even conducive for that marketing aspect of the ecosystem. And it kind of, it's a mental state of sentiment that's just like negative feedback loop over and over again. And they got to pull themselves out of the hole. And maybe it starts with better prize pools, better content to stream, better sort of situations and campaigns overall. But I want to push this forward a little bit because we've been talking about this for a little bit.
Sure, let's get out of here.
Let's get it. We got to talk about the groups. Toronto Defiant, Timeless Ethereal getting out of Group A. Energy Shock, TSM getting out of Group B. Kind of an easy one over Arizona State University and Tanuki. Arizona State has done some pretty good work in the collegiate esports tournaments for Overwatch, but they couldn't quite make any sort of substantiality here. Then we have Group C, which is a interesting one. Fluffy Dreamland and Citrus Nightmare over Shikigami and Vice. Shikigami was somebody we did see in EWC invited, so they were qualified through points. I guess think the Face It League points, but you know, they're not really able to do anything here in the group stages. And then finally, Nightmare and Timeless out of Group D over Team Z and Fries in the Bag. Bring us down into the bracket part. I'm speed running this if you haven't noticed. Toronto Defiant taking a definitive lead in the beginning, 3-0ing TSM, 3-0ing Nightmare, but Nightmare was starting to show some real gusto and some understanding of the comp here. They're starting to like figure out like losing maps 99 to 100, but they still lost. So the scoreline of 3-0 doesn't fully represent how much of a fight they were able to put out here. Then we get to the upper bracket final, and Energy Shock figures it out. We're able to push through and take the win over Defiant, pushing them into the lower bracket, which I'm sure all these teams were excited to hear because now they had to slay a dragon with no armor, essentially. On the bottom end here, Nightmare over TSM. TSM having a really difficult showing. Maybe that's because, like you're saying, the financial difficulties of the roster, of the coaching, etc. Not going to put words in their mouth, but they weren't able to make a win here happen, and unfortunate for them. Getting knocked out one of the first rounds. Timeless going on to beat Citrus Nation. Nightmare over Fluffy Dreamland. Nightmare facing Timeless to get to rematch on Toronto Defiant. Nightmare coming out of a 3-2 victory against Timeless to then lose 3-2 to Toronto Defiant. And then the finals where it matters, a 4-0 Vengeance scoreline where Toronto Defiant over Energy Shock. And again, this was a lot closer of a score stat line because it's not representing the 99 to 100s. These maps were close. It was a bit of a cat and mouse sort of play, but the flexibility and the really the sustainability and just the significance of Sugar Free, as well as Cal. Was it Cal? No, but the support line of Toronto Defiant were able to stay alive in some really ridiculous situations. This was a very dive heavy meta. Diva's strong, Winston's strong. Winston actually just got nerfed today, so we saw a lot of that sort of dive. But then with Toronto Defiant and some others, we saw Sigma. We saw some Somber comps. We saw some Bastion. We saw some Pharah. We saw a lot of diversity in the meta here, a lot of different players, and I think that's what ultimately showed the value for an Energy Shock to be able to take a win off of Toronto Defiant. That Nightmare was able to take a couple maps off of Toronto Defiant, and the Toronto Defiant, who were stand down the best team in North America for the first half of this year, losing horribly in DreamHack to everyone else in the world, then coming back in EWC to take second place. The second strongest team in the world as of standings right now. And you've got these other organizations, the other teams really putting up their run for a show here. Anything surprising about this line here? I know we talked a lot about if Toronto Defiant's just 4-0ing, or if they're in the winner's bracket, we're not watching in the previous tournaments, but here we are. Toronto Defiant in the loser bracket. Did you end up watching any of this? Were you surprised at the stat lines here or the comps being played, Nick?
No, I think this is a pretty bad common theme right now, that the lower bracket ends up just being where you wait. It's purgatory for the rematch. It's in all games and all tournaments recently. But
right, we were talking about that last week for LCS, which we're going to get into LCS in just a minute, go in the updates and what to expect for Worlds.
Damn, I thought we skipped it.
Yeah. But the lower bracket kind of stuff, the double elimination feels a lot better competitively than the EWC single elimination thing, where it's that's an any given Sunday sort of mentality where it's you're in it to win it. You have to win or you go home, go big or go home every single game. The double elimination gives a better competitive feel, but with less teams or the same teams, you kind of recycle that same storyline. You recycle the same match taglines. We did see a little bit of a shakeup in here, but yeah, to your point, I agree. All right. Unless you have something else to kind of talk on.
I have something silly to say because it's about what I was saying before. We've talked a lot about Toronto Defiant, right? Just to let you know, over the course of their earnings are $214,400 from 10 tournaments
for this year, 2024, or from
that's just them. 10 tournaments, $214,400.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Is it for Defiant for the year?
Lifetime.
Lifetime. Okay, so that includes Overwatch League.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. They do have a reputation in Overwatch League as never winning. And then that's the funny thing is that they go to the blue logo in EWC, become the Toronto Ultra, and end up getting second place, which is, not winning, but pretty significant prize pool, pretty decent situation. So I want to put that in there a little bit. They didn't really win all too much during Overwatch League. I
hear you. So NRG, who we were just talking about, right? Who faced Energy Shock has only made $7,000. Energy Shock. NRG made $130,000 from an original Overwatch, but Overwatch 2, they've made $7,000. How much effort are they putting in? Yeah, it's $7,000, bro,
That
for Energy
feels
Shock.
that feels weird. Yeah, $7,000, and like this is like the second tournament they've done. I think they did EWC. Maybe they did Dream. They came out in DreamHack. So they've done 3 tournaments and they've only won $7,000 as Energy Shock. The energy part, maybe that makes sense because energy was Dallas.
623. 623 is when they said they won it. So that was the Face It League season 1 for $7,000. That's what they want as energy. Yeah. Like granted, like energy is like as a whole has won $7.5 million, right? Over the course of like 20 different games. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's only $7.5 million. Like it's a good amount of money, but it's not like, just trying to point that out. Like Overwatch itself, by the way, Florida Mayhem made the most amount of money out of 6 tournaments. They have $1.3 million.
I think
the
that kind of
Dallas
makes
Fuel is right behind them.
Well, I thought the Dallas Fuel was owned by NRG, but maybe they were owned. Like, I'm a little confused about the ownership, etc., and like how it goes, etc., because like the organizations for the franchises were behind the scenes.
This isn't orgs, it's teams. Just teams. Okay. Strictly just like Energy Shocked is just a team. It's not about their org and how much money they made. Their org itself made a good amount of money. But the Dallas Fuel winning tournaments, they won 4 tournaments, like have prize from 4 tournaments, $1.2 million basically.
And they were second place as total.
San Francisco Shock, which,
Yo, how about this? Yes, they were one of the most winning teams, but I was going to say, what if we kind of like, this is really interesting, and I kind of want to look at this deeper. What if we compile a spreadsheet here later, kind of look at this in another episode, take a look at this and kind of break down, especially historically for Overwatch, the organizations in Overwatch League, how well the franchise model did, and the wells in the quotes there. And maybe if as we go along, we can compare that to how like League Esports looks and like assume how much they make, or etc. Valorant, moving on, how it kind of stacks up in the ecosystem, because I think we definitely mined a little bit of an interesting topic here, and I would like to know more. And of course, if you're watching and you also want to know more, let us know in our comments, in our social media. Send us an email, all that stuff. We'd love to do an episode about it. And of course, if you guys are excited about it too, it's going to get us more excited, and we'll definitely make that happen sooner than later. So yeah, Nick, if you wanted to finish your thought on that, I'm sorry to interrupt because it does feel
it's all
like
good, dude. Like if people go ahead.
Yeah, if it sounds like a good in-depth topic. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, dude, it's there's so much in the numbers because you're able to peel back all the BS, right? There's so much in the numbers, and just like to not go any real further in it, right? The top tournament prize pool support for your game that makes so much money, okay, was Overwatch League 2022 playoffs at $2.5 million. Okay, they literally said your game can't support itself, even though it can, because they just like to shuffle the money. And the EWC, by the way, is ranked 4th. That's the 4th largest tournament for Overwatch ever. Is EWC. Like it's a joke. It's a joke to really say this nonsense. Like, and I'll say it again, like I like all my games, but I will put them in the dirt too. I do not care. Like these companies, once the numbers come out, dude, my Minecraft brain turns on. Like,
we're gonna get you into that Microsoft Excel esport, man. Get you competing there.
No, thank you. Those guys are wizards. I've watched.
All right, going to talk about more wizards right now because we're going to finish up with Overwatch Esports with going over the prize pool for EMEA. We're going to be a little bit quicker about this one. We did see a little bit more of a shakeup. Generally speaking, ENCE taking away first place. They had historically been the second place Sallies in EMEA region for the last couple of stages, and tournaments just getting knocked out, getting bumped out by SSG. But ENCE was able to take first place, the 30 ground. And 500 circuit points. They faced Vitrus Pro in the final. VP was pretty solid overall. They were able to make some really competitive moves. They took second place, $15,000. Space Station Gaming, a name that we've seen familiarized. I guess this meta wasn't their strong suit. They weren't able to convert and make some moves on this. Taking third place, still solid for them. and then Twisted Minds in fourth. Here's your fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, and on. But not much to really discuss besides that. Here's the whole list of teams as we walk us down to the bracket. I want to take a look at the bracket. We're going to skip over the group stages because we kind of know what's going to happen. But the point I want to speak about is really Virtus Pro over Space Station, which kind of unexpected. Virtus Pro is really coming into their own. Space Station has been the juggernaut in the EMEA region. Not a definitive juggernaut because of the way metas go, but they've been substantially there. They're a London Spitfire, essentially, running a lot of Ryan comps, a lot of Brawl comps, but then able to move into a hottie monkey Winston meta and show some really interesting looks. So this Diva Winston meta kind of threw them through a little bit of a loop. Virtus Pro taking it to them, but then getting beat out by Ents and then coming back in a double. What is it? How should I call this? They've played Space Station again in another vengeance. Space Station getting 3-0'd by them the second time, and then Ents 4-2ing them. They were able to take 2 maps off of Ents, and it was really close on that. But then Ents in the late game figured something out, was able to just crush the backline predominantly with some hit scan pressure and a little bit of diviness. But that's your bracket right there. Nick, any thoughts on this? Any sort of like what we see? Any teams that kind of stand out to you? We do see Twisted Minds here. They've struggled. They were at EWC. We've seen the roster changes, etc. But they're kind of like faltering in that middle aspect of it. Space Station being able to 3-0 some teams, but then like not getting past Virtus Pro twice. And then Ents finally taking the win. The second place Sally's finally taking their first place prize pool of a whopping $30,000. Any thoughts that you see with this?
Not really with what I see with like the bracket and stuff like that. Besides, like, there's a clear distinction between upper half and lower half when it comes to this region, where like the upper half seems to be a little bit closer than you might think based on like what I'm looking at. But I do have like the thought of like, what do these pros think about the games that they played at the EWC versus the games now for stage 3? Like, how did they like the bans versus not playing with the bans like directly afterwards? Is like kind of what I'm.
That's a great question. This was the first major tournament like overall without the ban system, just coming out of the ban system. The ban system got a lot of good commentary about it from talking heads and some sort of publications, but it hasn't really been talked about here by the players. Do they care? Do they not care? It's a great question. Something we might want to dive into and check out a little bit, but how much did it impact to the thought process here? Did it, coaches feel like it was an easier time navigating without the bans and like, trying to figure it out, because we saw how the bans, some teams just didn't have it. They couldn't figure out what they were doing on that. But anyway, wanting to wrap up Overwatch, I'm just going to run us into what to expect coming up from OWCS. We've got stage 4 starting in a couple weeks, I think 2 weeks. And that's going to be all being played for the points for the World Finals at Stockholm. The Overwatch Championship Series is going to be at DreamHack Stockholm, pretty much similar to DreamHack Dallas. But this is going to be for all the marbles. We'll see how many marbles that actually ends up being. A lot of these teams right now are in it. Like you said, with EMEA, it seems to be like a 2-tier. You got it or you don't. But we've seen how the top tier, the ones who got it, that's been expanding. A little bit of that is roster changes. A little bit is financials. A little bit of that is financials. But it'll be interesting to see how this all happens, because during all this time, APAC is still happening in their own way. They play this stuff differently than North American EMA does. But, it seems to be just the crazy raccoon show, and Team Falcons, just another Korean team owned by the Saudis, but keep coming in second. So Team Falcons just can't get past that crazy raccoon barrier wall, but that's pretty much the world right now. And we'll see how this goes, because this is going to be the last big tournament of the year. See how it signifies to Blizzard, how they've done this year with this esport, what it's worth, what they're going to do next year. I'm sure they're going to announce what they expect to do a week or so into this or after this. I'm really hoping for more, which, we can kind of assume, but I want to also then finalize with the current power rankings in North America at EMEA based on the points, who's getting into Stockholm and the cutoff. Currently, we've got Toronto Defiant, Energy Shock, and TSM. TSM, who didn't really do too well at this tournament, the stage 3. They've got one more shot, but they're already in. Might not matter. And like, this is a team that has been placing well in the first 2 stages, and they kind of fell off in DreamHack, and they haven't really been able to push back. We've got some contenders players. We've seen some shakeups with this roster, but surprising that there's only 3 teams, which means it could be anybody's game here. Some interesting competitors: Fluffy Dreamland, Shikigami. You know, Timeless is a new competitor here, but like they're at top of the bracket here for contention. So stage 4 is going to matter a lot for them to get those points. Do another 2nd or 3rd place. In Citrus Nightmare, another team like that. Hell, a Fluffy Dreamland could pull a crazy run if they have the roster come together in that way. But, you know, how likely is it? Who knows?
They could, but like the crazier thing is like Energy Shock can kind of decide who's in 3rd place by just trading a player and selling one. Like this is what I was saying before. At what point do they become products? Like you're gonna get more sponsorship money next year if you buy my player this year. Like I don't know who the worst player on the team is, but like I can see that happening. Like bro, like. But then again, there's only $30,000 for first place. So who's got the pocket change for this?
But you're right. How much do you want to get in? Is it more about reputation and merch sales than it is about like roster costs? And like maybe it might be worth it. But I would assume a lot of these teams are kind of like local, just the boys running it down mid kind of stuff. So I don't think they'd have that sort of budgetary distinction. Either way, exciting to see. Definitely an interesting thing to think about, especially as we get into this last leg where the points matter a lot. Maybe not for Toronto Defiant, who are probably going to play Rainmaker for a lot of teams, just knocking them out. But we'll see how that goes in a couple weeks. Then for the EMEA region, the same sort of idea, but it's a little bit closer. Space Station Gaming had a pretty bad overall tournament, getting knocked out early, running the lower bracket, and then coming back to hit 3rd place, 3rd, 4th place. Ents first placing this. They're 2nd in this. And then Gaming Gladiators. We didn't even see that name really on this tournament for EMEA. But they're still locked in as 3rd place for points.
This is pretty interesting too. Like I like these teams with bigger rosters more. I feel like that. I just feel like they might have more strategic. Like I like if they're going to put somebody in because of another player if they match up well against that other player. You know, like think about like your roster being like the X-Men. Like we ain't sending Wolverine at Magneto. That's for sure. Yeah. So like, but like but that's what I mean. Like I do like bigger rosters for that. I've said it before about like League and stuff like that. I like when players change instead of being like the first. The same people all the time, but I want 10-man rosters across the board for like 5-player teams. But
like, I also liked how the ban system at EWC created a situation that benefited flexible players. The DPS that could play multiple DPS, they're not just a hit scan specialist. And like, we saw that kind of happen when we went from Overwatch 1 into Overwatch 2. The off tank kind of got broken apart, destroyed, and like they had to become a main tank, or they had to just be this side character on the team where they're not playing, but they're there to support, go rah rah cheerlead. You've got teams like Space Station who pick up Psycho, who can then do a bit more dive, pick up a funny Astro who's very like Lucio heavy, but has a decent flexibility in some of those other support characters. But then you have a Hottie who's like strong on like a Winston or a Reinhardt, right? Could he play a Sigma? I'm sure he could play it passable, but like he would really, I think they really need the other players on the team to step up. A Sparker on a hit scan. Like to condense my thought, EWC was awesome because it kind of showed the 2 choices, and it didn't really benefit the identity pick compositions. That's the word. It didn't benefit the identity composition. So you have a larger roster like Ents picking up like Wamon recently, Crimzo as like a player coach. They're able to do a little bit more, but they also have like choice specialists that they can notch in and notch out. But then you have other teams that are running 5, and like, are they good enough to like hit every meta? Are they good to keep up with the patch? Are they good enough to keep with the bans? If we do the single ban situation there's new before, it creates another dynamic of the like what's interesting of strategy here. And does it give a big headache to coaches, or does it kind of relieve coaches because then they don't have to script out where the fights are going to happen and what the changes are going to be? You know, we're going to pick this, and then they're going to counter pick, and then we've got this pick already locked in, and then they can't do anything because they're stuck, kind of stuff. So yeah, you know, I'm monologuing a little bit, but I think that's kind of what you're saying. Like the larger rosters kind of give that, but then there's something interesting about the smaller rosters too, where they do reward that flexible player, that support player who can play like 8 different characters.
I mean, yeah, like I like the flexible players a lot because they, you know, it does allow for the comp to change, but you know, the meta is tried and true a good amount of the time for Overwatch. There isn't really like, you know, there's nothing else besides the meta. There's no items coming in. There's only player skill affecting it. So it's usually not something that somebody can be like, you know, flex out of just because, like, even if that they're good with the character, it doesn't mean that they're going to net any results that they need.
And with the meta too, you see at the beginning of a tournament, they're like loosely trying to figure out what's really good, what's the meta, and how well they can play it. And if they can't play it too well, what's their workaround? What answers do they have for X problem, Y problem? So by the time you get to like the lower end of lower brackets and whatnot, the semifinals, the quarterfinals, they start figuring it out, and then they become more solidified. You start seeing the same comps. People aren't testing things as much, but really interesting point. Really good to see. And I think that is a good note to leave this on, because it's an exciting thing to see as we continue. Will some players get traded to sold off for their points to be able to make DreamHack to try to get some prize money for that big tournament at the end of the year? Will some teams have enough flexibility to keep up with the patches? Will they introduce that ban system? I want to see it. I want to see it happen, because I think that really creates a much bigger diversity of hero selection. But anyway, all questions we'll have to answer at another time. Moving on into our next topic, Nick, are you ready to talk about LCS? It is a little bit pushing it, but you know, if we're feeling pretty good,
we can blast it.
Let's blast this. And we're going to start by talking about, what is it? This past weekend of the LCS, just kind of a score recap to keep us updated on what's been happening. I want to bring us here. We were looking at previously a 3-0 by 100. Team Liquid over 100 Thieves. And then this week, Team Liquid goes into playing FlyQuest and 3-2s them. Dignitas coming out of a win over NRG Kia, taking on 100 Thieves and getting 3-2'd by them. Then the last round that we saw this week with a lower bracket was 100 Thieves over Cloud9. Was this one shocking for you? Because I think it was a little shocking for me.
It was definitely shocking for a lot of people. This is the super team, you know? Like this is, you know, super teams don't usually succeed for the most part. Like it's always like, oh my God, they got so many good people on it. Da, da, da. But I think it looks like the way that like everything happened, it just feels like the way that it played out was exactly what I was talking about. Where like you're gonna develop these habits that like aren't gonna be good against Team Liquid by playing these other teams that just aren't even remotely good as Team Liquid. And you know, it shows like 100 Thieves is doing really well after losing to Team Liquid.
Right.
Like
they've now easily gotten themselves up to like 3rd, 4th place already.
Yeah. So like, and you know, this, I think it's the 6th. We have Team Liquid versus FlyQuest, and then we determine who's going to be playing the finals. Right. So like, guess what? Rematch coming up. I really I hate the lower bracket. Like I understand like people want to have like their second chance, but like you're in the, like half the time, man, like unless you faced Team Liquid in this one, like you know the exact reason why you're in the lower bracket. Like stop.
Right. And like this was something we were complaining about, like our extended rant last week, where it's like there's something wrong with LCS, there's something wrong with League Esports, and maybe it's because they're not the main character. LCK is, the Korean region is, but something's got to change. Something's got to, you know, get things more competitive, more in it.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying this last week, dude. It was a bit of a slog just for me to like actually watch these games, knowing that like what was going to happen. Like, I mean, Cloud9 one was a little bit of a, it's an upset, but when you're like, I didn't really want to watch all these games over again. Like, I don't want to see 100 Thieves versus FlyQuest, to be honest. Like, I don't want to see Team Liquid versus FlyQuest, and it's not going to make me happy if they get to do a redo.
Yeah,
like. As far as I'm concerned, like there should be nobody this should be a fight for second and third, not a fight for first or second. Like that's like the most.
Well, just
I hate that, but whatever.
No, I hear you on that, and I agree. Just like let's move this forward a little bit. How do you see this going? Just give me your predictions because I think you've already kind of alluded to it.
100 Thieves,
Team Liquid,
easy.
100 Thieves over FlyQuest.
Yeah, and then rematch again, and like. Here's where like it might be an interesting game, it might not be, but like let's hope that 100 Thieves like learned a lot more, from going down there and playing against Team Liquid, and they rise up again. These are both like that's my teams. I love 100 Thieves. I love Team Liquid. This is what I've been saying for weeks. These are the two teams that I like. But I want Team Liquid to just win. I don't like the redo. So like I think 100 Thieves will win, and I think Team Liquid's gonna beat them. The run it back thing, bro. Like we're not sitting on couches anymore. Just like take the ass whooping and like move on, get better. Like
right. That feels like a format issue, of course. Like it is a Riot Esports sort of decision and like formatting issue, but another conversation for another time. We've already given our thoughts on that one last week. So if you want to check that out, we've got a clip on our YouTube page. If you have any ideas, of course, hit us up on our social media. Let us know or let Riot know. That's probably what's going to do a lot of work for us anyway. But yeah, from this, where they're playing for Worlds. So 100 Thieves has some fire under their ass to try to get into Worlds here, correct?
Like, dude, with the way that it's working out for this year, I'm not even 100% sure. Like, how it happens half the time. Let me look at my diagram. Like, I have like a little thing that I use in order to deal with it, right? So, like, the third slot for like the LCS is in play-in stages, and then we have the first two. So, like, this year we still have like the 3 potential slots. The Team Liquid obviously has the first one. Bro, NA slots. I lost my diagram. I can't find it. Oh, here we go. Thank you. There we go. All right. So right here we have it's gonna be FlyQuest or 100 Thieves, and they'll be the third place
stage teams that have already qualified right here. Let me kind of zoom in, see if we can get a little bit of a better scale. That's a little
so like
bit
basically
weird.
Like FlyQuest or 100 Thieves right now it should be like the winner moves on and they take the second slot, and the other one who loses has to be in the play-in stages for like Worlds. And usually the play-in stages are honestly like, I like the play-in stages a lot more. But I want more games for Worlds just in general. I would rather have everybody face everybody and have like Worlds, a lot more. Yeah.
It kind of creates a different environment too, because everyone reads the meta differently. All the regions play the game differently, look at it differently. So having answers in like this kind of rock, paper, scissor battle in North America, it might be it. That might be the play. But yeah, here we go. Seeing, whoever loses FlyQuest or 100 Thieves is in the play-ins, but then whoever wins is taking the second spot next to Team Liquid for LCS.
Yep, and like for the most part, like you probably like as far as like I'm concerned with America, like I always think as an American team, even though everybody will say America trash, and I always say like we're not that bad. Damn. I would prefer our team, like I would prefer Team Liquid to be in the play-in stages and just keep playing, like even with like, and just stay warmed up for everything, because sometimes we have like Fnatic or Cloud9 who are in that third spot, and then they go way too far, but like Fnatic surprisingly goes way too far whenever they get in the world. So like, and Cloud9 surprisingly goes pretty deep sometimes too.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of talk about the teams that have already qualified for Worlds here, we got Gen G from the MSI tournament, then 3 LCK spots that are still open. They're still battling it out to see who's going to get in. Billy Gaming from the LPL Summer stage, Top Esports from the LPL Championship points. Then LPL Regional Finals qualifier is LNG Esports. Weibo Gaming. Can you say that for me? I think I got it right. Weibo?
I'm probably Weibo, but you know.
Weibo. Also in LPL Regional Finals, G2 Esports from LEC, Fnatic from LEC, and then we've got LCS
like,
Summer Team Liquid.
Somehow Fnatic just be sitting in Worlds, bro. Like every time. They changed their roster so much. Like one of their more famous players, who is like their ADC, is literally a support on the T1. This is the reckless guy. I like watching him play. Like he's a support now. And he used to be like their main star for Fnatic, and he's the support for T1 Academy. So, but yeah,
kind of an interesting play for it. Like you kind of see him bounce around and everything. But for the play-in teams, we've got Mad Lions, KOI, either FlyQuest or 100 Thieves. So like that's nice because they're both getting in. Just placement seeding that matters. PSG Talon, Fukuoka, SoftBank's Hawks. The Hawks are coming in. GAM Esports, Viking Esports. We've got CBLOL still being determined for the playoff spot here. We'll see what's going on with that league, who's going to make it into the play-ins. And then Rainbow 7 and that last spot over here. Any dark horse team do you see in this as we talk about Worlds, Nick?
I haven't looked at GAM's roster, but GAM always has surprisingly like good games. Okay. Like they're always like they do. All right, so Easy Love is there. And Kaya, Levy. All right, so I don't know the other two too much. I don't think. I can't remember like their full roster because like they're not in a region that I normally watch, but I always have fun watching their games.
That's the one thing too about like an Overwatch or a league where you have like a whole world playing it in the different regions. It is a lot to kind of keep track of the roster changes and the styles and like the power rankings of all the different regions.
Yeah, like the different regions end up having like similarly slightly different metas for the most part. And usually, everybody just turns into like a Korean meta for the most part of like who to pick and ban during like Worlds.
They're the main characters, man. They're the main characters.
This is like it's an interesting thought in like League, and like the thing that like the big difference. I've said it before, probably not in this exact way. But like the big difference between like North America and like the Asian countries for like League, right, is literally the mindset of like we can win, just play better, and you learn to play from behind. Like the sentence of learn to play from behind is like you learn the end of a fucking song and you don't know how to play the beginning of it. It's stupid. You need to know how to play the beginning of the game, and that's why you should forfeit at 15 and cut your nonsense out. You didn't play well enough to even get to 20 minutes.
It's almost like traditional sports too. Like you're not always going to be leading all the time, right? So you have to learn to play from behind. A good example recently was the Olympics. The U.S. basketball team, the men's basketball team, they were behind against France, I believe. They were behind in a couple other matches. And like that's a very star-laden team, a lot of talent there, but like even they were behind, and they had the grit and the knowledge and the know-how to be able to pull themselves out. Why shouldn't that apply to like football or American football or baseball, hockey, whatever sport it is? It should apply to esports as well. And like that's a big mindset. And I know that's a little bit of a culture thing too. I have heard with Overwatch culture on teams, the APAC region is like, if you're behind, you're terrible, you're the worst, you can't play it. Like that resilience is harder sort of found in those teams. But then on the sort of deficit side, and the NA teams will like almost overdo it, where it's like, you've always got a shot, never give up, never surrender kind of mentality. And like, that's admirable. But like when you're trash, right? I'm not calling any specific team trash.
When you're losing, you're definitely losing. There's like ways to like win the like certain ways to where the game like, all right, so
there's got to be
the
a
game
way.
isn't broken open yet. right?
There's
Like
got
your
to be a
base
middle
isn't
spot,
broken.
basically. Yeah, there's got to be a middle ground where you're not like, oh, we're the worst players ever, and not like, I'll never give up. I want to fight to my last breath. It's like,
Bro,
you gotta
I mean
find
this
a
for
way
like
to
regular
win.
people.
Yeah,
I mean
go
this
for
for anybody playing in like solo queue. If you're playing in ranked mode, just in general, like just FF15, bro. If somebody died at 10 minutes, just go to the next game, dudes. Like, stop the nonsense. Like, you don't even know how to farm. You don't even know what, like, it's like the fundamentals aren't even there, man. You're trying to like run before you can even walk. And like, I don't mean this for like every single game, but I do mean this wholeheartedly when I say like, stop wasting 30 minutes of your life just because you think you can make a comeback. Like, go to the next one. Like, it's like, you're going to get better and eventually you will rise through the ranks. It's not going to come from playing 40-minute games. I'll tell you that right now.
So I wanted to kind of push on that a little bit. I'm like, not necessarily to dwell on this topic, but as a musician, I've been able to have some success being signed to a label, being able to tour a little bit. And like a lot of musicianship is practice, right? And that's kind of what you're talking about here, right? You mentioned don't just learn the end of the song, learn the beginning of the song too. Absolutely true. But then there's a point where you're going to have to put it all together. So part of that, and especially with music, and I've seen some like video game coaches, esport coaches, and I've had some traditional sport coaches talk about this too. It's like when you practice, focus on one thing. So my pushback is that focus on one aspect of the game. And maybe it's a bit macro where it's like focus on the first half of the game. Sure. But maybe look at it like what is something you can get better at throughout the game, right? Like if
you said that.
If I'm a musician, I'm going to be doing this triplet run on the fretboard of a guitar. So I need to like, do a hammer on and be able to switch. And I'm going to do that 20 times through the game, through the song. I need to like learn how to be able to do that at every point, but kind of get better at it over time. So focusing on just that in this match might be the play. And same with like, it might apply to League. It might apply to Overwatch. Just focus on one aspect.
I know I use that. Like literally that's one of the things that like I do when I go into the game. Like if I've noticed a deficiency in some of my plays, like recently, like here's one. If you die within the first 10 minutes, maybe make that your goal. Don't die for the first 10 minutes of the game. And if you notice that you die the first 15 minutes of the game, maybe make that your goal. But like a lot of it is like farming, positioning, and not dying. That's like the first 10 minutes of the game. Okay. Right. There's objectives, stuff like that. But like that's a core essential of the game. If you're not able to farm because you keep dying, right? Then you're not playing the fucking game and just surrender and let the game, like, let's move on, dude.
And maybe the bigger macro of it too. Maybe the bigger macro of it is positioning, right? How do you learn how to position in phase one, the early game, and then learn how to position transfer that position ideology into another strategy in phase two, the end game phase or the mid phase, right? Like that might be the focus. So focus on your positioning in phase one, like you're saying, and then transition into mid phase, focus on your position and be able to change how you're playing the game in one game. But ultimately you're focusing on what you're positioning, where you're positioning, and when in the game you're doing that positioning. So like that might be like a bigger macro aspect of it to kind of connect the dots on it. But yeah. Anyway, if you have anything else to kind of share on that, I wanted to go into what the play-in brackets look like for Worlds here on LCS. A little bit of a coaching tangent for us. All right, play-in stage, opening matches we've already got defined here. I'm just going to assume you didn't have anything else to add. You wanted to kind of like share.
Dude, I got nothing.
All right. So opening matches we've already got decided is Mad Lions KOI versus Viking Esports. PSG Talon is waiting for their opponents. That's going to be decided shortly. I think in the next week, maybe next 2 weeks. Gam Esports going up against Hawks Gaming, and Rainbow waiting for their matchup coming in. I think, yeah, they're going to either have FlyQuest or 100 Thieves there in that opening match bracket, right? And then, of course, we'll see how that plays out further on. But like this is the first games we are expecting to happen for play-ins. And then after a couple days, maybe a week of plays, they're going to be going into the next phase where you're going to be taking on the definitive teams that have qualified that we see here. Group stage, kind of expect, but Nick, any sort of team you want to spotlight and look out for in this play-in part of it? These matchups.
Not really, like besides GAM, it's like there's not really like much to really look for in like the playing stages besides like interesting matches from players you haven't seen. like not really strategies, but like the play styles that you're going to see. And that's really like where the play-in stages like really excels, is you get to see a lot more different players. You get to see different laning phases. They might even have different champion pools. I mean, except like right now we're probably in like the Ziggs meta where everybody picks Ziggs, but this is going to be an interesting world. Besides playing stages, I think this might be like one of the most lackluster worlds I've ever experienced, because I think like if you're not planning and practicing to beat Gen G, you're probably just going to lose. Like, I'll be completely honest. Like, I think Gen G is going to be the team that just ends up taking the whole entire thing. They look really strong right now. So
I feel like they're that much head and shoulders above other teams still, because they had a really good showing in the last few stages at the MSI tournament as well.
Yeah, I do. like I said this before, man, when we were watching EWC, like I really enjoy watching Chovy play. I don't really care for the organization of Gen G, right? But I do like watching Gen G when they play League of Legends. Like Hens is great. Like I like support players who get it done. Like I think support is I like playing support. That's like one of my favorite roles. And that's not that's like the most hated role for players, just so you know. like usually people don't like to play support. Jungle, you get yelled at. Support, you get yelled at. And then top lane, my bot died, and it's their reason why we lost. And like the mid laner is like everybody is making me lose the game. But no, it's like I like being support. So Lahens is great. I think their top is solid, but Canyon is awesome. But Chovy is like he's up there, man. Like he's looking like the best player in the world right now. Like he's looking like Faker's looking strong, but Chovy is probably I don't think it's really questionable at this point that like Chovy is probably the best player of League of Legends currently.
That's a bold statement. I don't actually think that's too bold, because he's definitely put his money where your mouth is. We'll keep a look at that. We'll keep a lookout for Chovy in this tournament. It's going to be a little bit until we see him play, but Worlds is going to be the exciting time for it, and it's going to be another definitive moment to prove he's currently the best player in the world right now. Nick, we've got this last play-in bracket video that. Do we want to show, or do you want to skip? Because I'm absolutely down to show it if you are.
For the most part, it's just them picking the names out of the thing, and it won't have any reference to you and like the Oda. I can't say this guy's name ever. Whenever I say it, I just completely get destroyed.
Oda.
Yeah. So he is an OG League of Legends player. Like from EU for the most part, he's also entertaining on stage. He's got a good personality. He's got a good read on like League in general from being a player. But he fills out in a suit basically, and he's able to like speak properly in front of the camera, and he's entertaining. So like he got invited to do this, to do the polls basically.
Right. Him and Lore specifically. All right, so I want to play the video, and if you want to just kind of commentate over the top of it, let me know if you want us to pause or anything, but here we go.
Where is, what's his face?
And welcome to Olympiade in München for the World's 2024 Play-ins Draw Show!
So this draw show, was that at a tournament recently?
I believe it was at the end of, because they finished EU. So like at the end of EU, they did the playing stages.
Oh, okay.
Picks. And usually it's like going to be an LC, like a Riot event. Like there is Riot Korea, but it's like a little bit different.
Gotcha.
So
Mad Lions call. LCS is third seed.
Yeah.
The Vikings, like no hate on their art, dude. Like you need to change that. It's not the Vikings. That looks like a dwarf, bro. like no hate. Like it just looks like a dwarf.
Might just be a Viking dwarf, dude.
VCS is second seed.
True. But EU's got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and she seems to be just listing out the teams that we spoke that have already made it into Worlds from EU.
For the rules of the draw.
Yeah, it's, again, it's so she's gonna go over like the rules of it, but
and we'll be draw the tier 2 teams, and then we will draw their opponents from the second tier. A draw rule is in place to prevent teams from the same region from playing on the same side of the bracket. In the event an invalid match is drawn, the team drawn will be placed in the first valid bracket placement. Now I feel like I should have, thank you so much Malu for bringing the envelope. I do feel like I'm missing someone though. I should have a guest.
Yeah, we had, you know.
No, he was supposed to, he's not supposed to be here. He's supposed to be at the airport. I don't want him on stage. Security, please. Oh, okay, I guess welcome.
He just walks out like a Chad, dude. It's so funny. He's just so funny. He's got this, he's got that nice quality European CSGO humor.
If there's one thing that I can say for sure is that.
But yeah, so he comes out, he's doing his stuff, but you know, it's always a fun event when they do like the drawing events and stuff like that. I wish they made it a little bit more than like a 7-minute video at the end of something. You know.
Yeah, is there any timestamp you want us to skip through or anything? Or
no, dude,
point out?
you could just like basically like this is where I grabbed like the diagram, like because they didn't post it like when I was looking for it after the video, but this is where I grabbed the stages bracket. Yeah, that one.
That one. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's from what it sounds like is they had the two guests choose cards randomly to fit a matchup, and if the matchup was not valid, like they were from the same region, I believe it is, then it voided, and then that team would be bounced into a matchup that was valid. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's pretty much like always like similarly like the way that it is. Like no two regions are in normally like it's like instead of the play-in stages, we have like group stages, and it only has like a couple of teams, like four teams in each thing. So
yeah,
they're doing a little bit different.
And that's what we're seeing here. These are the teams that we're kind of already talking about, where we have one more decided. We're looking at the brackets here. Rainbow 7 is going to be playing against either FlyQuest or 100 Thieves. I guess they're called Team 7, or they're just, they weren't filled
they're
out
LCS
just yet.
3. LCS 3 is
They're
theirs.
LCS 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the graphic of what we're explaining. If anybody's listening on audio, there's the matchups we were talking about a little bit earlier. We still have a little bit more, another weekend, I think at least a week more of decider matches to fill it out totally. We'll have that coverage next week on the episode. We'll update you what to expect. But I think that kind of wraps up our coverage here of LCS and what to expect this week currently with Worlds and League Esports. Any final thoughts here for what to expect on the world stage, or even just this weekend with the LCS playoff stage situation?
I mean, like, I think, this weekend's going to play out as I expect for the most part, where I think like 100 Thieves and Team Liquid are just going to face each other in the finals. And then, when we get a little bit closer to Worlds, we'll have Pick'em, and we can do some Pick'ems, which is a lot of fun because it's kind of like drafting football, but for League of Legends. Basically it's a little bit easier because like it's not really drafting. You just get to pick the players that you think like the last time, and stuff like that. So hopefully they put out, I hope that they put out a little bit more into the pick'em, like who gets first blood out of a bunch of different things or something like that. Because some of the funnest part for pick'em, to be honest, was when we'd be like 4 weeks in and like there's 3 people who have 100% accuracy right now, just so you know. They used to that's like the funnest part for it. And then you can see also the casters and the analysts and stuff like that, and see how correct they got it versus you and everything like that. That's and cool. Some professionals. There's a lot of cool things that happen with pick'em.
First off, that's a wild stat. 3 weeks of 100% accuracy, and that's crazy. But that sounds like a lot of fun. Check with us next week. I think we'll be going over it next week with pick'ems if it's all set up. I think we should have all the play-ins solidified by then. So we're expecting Riot to have the pick'ems already sort of live and active, but join us for that. I think that's kind of it, Nick. Thanks for joining me today. If you're watching out there, thanks for joining us, watching along. Let us know your thoughts, any sort of comments or additions to the things that we said. Let us know on our social medias or right here in chat, down in the comments below. We're at the Esports Meta. We're live every Tuesday. Nick, any words to send us off here?
Nothing.
Put you on the spot, man. Nothing.
Yeah, if you give me 2 minutes, I would have had something. All
right. Well, I'll say something that Nick always says. This has been the Esports Meta. Well, he doesn't say that part. I usually say that part. This has been the Esports Meta. Thanks for joining us today. It was a lovely episode. It was lovely having you. Stay sweaty, stay gaming, and stay out of the gray screen. All right? That's the thing that Nick always says. Thanks for joining us. See you here next time, and we'll have a blast talking video games. Catch you next time.